Hey everybody, Benjamin here again. Let's do a really quick video. I wanted to talk about something. I've been in training all this week. I've been on a different schedule all week, really different parenting schedule this week due to training for my work. And I work in a I would say it's pretty volatile field, the potential for violence is quite high, and dealing with people that are in manic type of states. And this training was fantastic because it had different elements of why people might be in like a manic state or a like a suicidal state, homicidal state, depressive, you're just very depressed, dealing with depression, family issues at home or at work, whatever it is. And then by the time somebody gets to when I would have to deal with them, oftentimes things are pretty elevated. And so, and this isn't necessarily anything new to me. I've been in this type of work off and on my whole life, and I've kind of gotten pretty good at it over the years, I would say. But this training was awesome because it brought in other types of reasons. It kind of pulled out the whole gamut of why somebody could be in a very difficult state, a violent state, a lashing out state, and so how to be a what they call a compassionate listener. Compassionate listener to try to de-escalate, defuse, verbal judo. Maybe you've heard that type of phrase before. Type of a scenario to talk somebody off of the ledge, as it were, right? And something that I noticed that I wouldn't have understood this, but going through this class now, I think I understand it better. And I actually sat down and had lunch with the doctor. Must have been Monday or Tuesday, and just picked his brain a little bit about people going through divorce and how, especially with children. I know for myself, I'm not speaking for everybody else, but I know for myself, it felt like a type of mania at one point. And it was for a short period of time, but I just felt really beside myself. And so I wanted to talk about that really quick and then just give a quick little tidbit on maybe how to go through that if you are going through something like this, or if you know somebody going through this, right? And so all the biggest thing that I pulled from it when I have to deal with somebody that's in a seemingly manic state or potentially really violent manic state is, and I'm not an expert in this, but nevertheless, I went through the course, and this is my big takeaway. And there's different things when you're dealing with people that have like a medical diagnosis, right? They have TBI, like a traumatic brain injury, and so they're lashing out this way, but maybe they normally wouldn't. Or what's the word I'm looking for? Like an anesthesia type of state, like an Alzheimer's type of thing, where bits of their memory are gone and they're frustrated they can't remember, or they don't know who you are, right? So that's one thing, and there's different ways to deal with these type of things. But I think the thing that probably I see most, and I actually have dealt with this a few times in my job where I'm at now, where people are going through divorce with kids, and it lands them in a bad spot, and they end up seeing me in the ER, right? Excuse me. And so I've actually talked to a few people, and guys particularly, when they're going through this, and I try to make some rapport and try to relate because I can, right? So anyway, oftentimes when we have so much stress, we all know what that is, right? Monetary, familial stresses at work, stress with your boss, something like this. You lost a job, and your car broke down. You don't even have the money to fix that. Do you fix your car? Do you get groceries for your family? Whatever. And more people go through this type of stuff than you would think. The people that I've talked to in the almost 2 years that I've been where I'm at, I try to get away from the type of work that I'm in, but post-divorce, it's something I'm familiar with, and I'm good at it, and I have a great parenting schedule. I was able to land almost the best, given the situation, the best parenting schedule that is possible. So that's why I work where I work for the time being, right? And the people that come in oftentimes aren't people that you would think. And what I've found is that people can be thrust into a manic state, into a mental health state, let's say. Like, it can happen to anybody. That's what's quite incredible about it. Oftentimes I deal with roughly the same or similar demographics, but not always. Like, people that you wouldn't even think would have to struggle with things, or they have a great career, or seemingly this great family life, or whatever, like manic, extreme depression, or just drastic changes or swings in people's behavior can happen to anybody. And I've really learned that. And so these stigmas about mental health, it's really a thing. And I wasn't necessarily on that bandwagon before this training period, because you do oftentimes see people that are trying to like use the system, or be placated to, or whatever. People just looking for attention or whatever. That does happen, attention seeking, right? Which may be or may not be, but it could be a bit of a mental health of its own. But again, just sometimes people that you wouldn't think end up becoming in these drastic, life-altering, manic states. And so, if I may, there was a period of time, maybe a few days there, when I was going through my divorce. And here's where this happens. Pay attention. This is important. Here's where this happens. When you are so unsure about the future of things, you don't like how things are turning out for you, or for your kids for that matter, let's say in divorce specifically, and you don't know how your life is going to be. And so you have all these stresses that come in. Well, what about the money? I don't want to go to court, but I have to now. Who am I going to be in the future? How is my kid or kids going to turn out? What does my family think? What does my church think? And you have all these bombarding, encroaching things that all come in relatively quickly, and you can't process it. This is what's amazing. And I'm not the biggest fan of therapy. I got to be honest. I'm really not. Especially marriage counseling and marriage therapy and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan, okay? But hear me. So all these bombarding, conflicting, not sure how things are going to work, ideas or thoughts keep just coming in. They just come in, they bombard you. And you get overwhelmed. And your senses and your brain can't handle all these incoming thoughts. And you have what was the word for that? Anyway, you have a bit of a psychological storming. And so your brain's just in this loop, right? Now, maybe you don't want to be in this loop, but you're stuck in it. You get stuck in it. And that's what's very interesting, is you get stuck in a loop or stuck in a cycle, and you can't get off the cycle. And it just seems to be this downward spiral down, and you can't get off the loop. You're cognizant of it to a degree, and you want off the ride. I don't like this roller coaster. I want off. but you can't get off the roller coaster. That's the thing. And so something that short term that we talked a lot about is when people are in these loops and they're looping and they're looping and they're looping, and they keep coming back to the same thing. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about that? And they keep coming back to it, calling them into something in the now, calling themselves into something in the present. And it might be something as easy as, not as easy, but as trying to make a rapport. So, hey, I see your necklace. That's a really cool necklace. It looks like it probably has some importance. What is it? One of those best friend necklaces? Who's the other person? And so you trying to get the thinking off the loop cycle. And so they look at their necklace. Oh yeah, this is from my friend so-and-so. And we got it back in this trip that we did together. And trying to get them to talk about their lives, to get them off the cycle. And this is interesting. And again, I'm not a professional in this. This is just through this course that I took. Talked a lot about this hindbrain, fight or flight. And so when your brain is stuck in the loop, you're on the fight or flight, right? So, I don't know what this is. So when your brain is stuck in that hindbrain storming back here, and you're trying to find out, I got to run from this, I got to get away from this, something's got to happen, and you're stuck in the loop, right? You're trying to call their thinking into the frontal lobe to start making decisions and calling them to today, to now. Because when you're stuck in that cycle and you have all this stuff bombarding you, you're not present. You're not present, and you can't even handle a little task in front of you often. And I've seen this a lot in my work. And so being able to talk to people, relate to people, and to get them present and to get them talking and to get them off the loop, right? Now, I was in that for a few days, I would say, when I was going through divorce. And I really didn't understand. I just didn't, everything came at once, and I didn't know if I was going to even see my kid again at all. And I was worried very much about child parenting time, because I've seen just guys get wrecked with parenting time. I've heard lots of horror stories. And so these are just playing in the back of my head, and what's going to happen and how are things going to turn out. I didn't know. And I had a friend of mine, and I was calling people a lot, just trying to talk about it, to be honest, because I know if you can't tell, I'm a verbal processor. And I have no problem sharing my opinions or views or what I think, right? And so I had to call people, think, what? People particularly who've been through divorce. And like, how did you get through this? What did you do? Because it was just so extreme to me. And one guy told me, I'll never forget this. He said, and I've actually used this, and I don't even think he's trained on this stuff, but it helps so much. And I've used it once since I've started recovering divorce process. He said, it was over the phone, and I was just looping. What about, how's this gonna, my son, and I just couldn't get anywhere. I was just spinning. And he says, hey man, like, he kind of like, buddy, and he says, listen to my voice. Listen to what I'm telling you. And he says, are you listening? I said, yes. He's like, are you paying attention? Yes. And then he just kind of explained to me, he's like, right now is not the time to make bad decisions. Like, right now is the time you need to make rational, legitimate decisions. And I've said this before on one of my videos, and I've had these conversations with guys since. If you mess this up right now, and if you just go manic and you do something stupid, or you overreact on something, or you get what I'm saying. He's like, man, you might not get time with your kid. Like, now is not the time to think irrationally. Now is the time to settle in, buckle down, think rationally, and be smart. Now is not the time to fuck up. Now is the time to make good decisions. And boy, when he made sure I was present, man. He's like, "Are you listening to me?" Yeah, man. Hey, are you hearing what I'm saying? You need to listen to me. And when he just called my attention off the loop that I was looping on and concentrated my focus onto his voice. And I'm telling you, this saved my life. Perhaps literally. Hey man, listen to what I'm telling you. Are you listening? Yeah, man, I'm listening. Are you understanding? Are you present? Are you here? Yeah, man. And then he just goes into this, and he's just like, now's not the time to, again, overreact. It's not the time. Now's the time to lean in, man. You got to be rational. You got to be smart, because if you mess this up here, man, you may not get a life back. And he was very pointed and very candid, and it was something I needed to hear. And so that's something that I wanted to share, and I noticed this in myself. I've had 2 panic attacks that I'm aware of in my life, and both of them were when I lived in Japan. And there was a point where I would say I absolutely was manic. And looking back on it now, especially some of the stuff I've learned this week and thinking back about some things, especially when I lived in Japan, I was not well. I wasn't well. And there was lots of different culture factors for that and language factors and so on, where I would say I was probably having a bout of, if I'm clarifying this or saying this right, like a bout of mental illness perhaps, or just a deep depression that I just could not get out of. And I remember one time my buddy from New Zealand, I must have presented, my affect must have been really off, and he asked me if I was okay. We were sitting in a group of friends, a group of meeting, and something must have registered for him. I don't know what it was, but I mean, I wasn't even in the room. And he looks over and he's sitting right next to me, my buddy Andy from New Zealand, man. God bless that man, and his family and his children, man. The Blakeleys, love you guys. But he reaches over and grabs my hand and just squeezes my hand, and it brought me back to the room. It brought me back to reality. And that's interesting they were saying that, because that's one of the things that they talked a lot about in this class is tactile, like someone like resting a hand on your knee, or if they're, if they allow it, or if allowing you to, touch their shoulder, or something kind, or something. If you can give somebody something, a drink of water, anything to get them to touch, to bring their thinking off the hindbrain into the front. Okay, now I have this bottle of water, I have to take a sip, something, anything to get them off the loop, right? And so anyway, this all is starting to make sense to me. And so I've realized, though, more than a few times in my life where I didn't have anybody necessarily there, although I have the best friends on the planet, to help me get off the loop. Or maybe like a therapist. I've gone to therapy before, I don't right now, but I see why that's very useful, to get people talking, to get them to be able to refocus or retrain their thinking, or retrain their logic, right? Instead of getting on the OODA loop or the looping system, but rather just thinking logically in the front lobes there. But there are some times, and this has happened to me, where you have to talk yourself off of the loop, the fight or flight loop. And that, I'm not saying that's easy, but it's almost like you have to catch it and talk yourself off of that loop before it starts. You can kind of feel it's coming in, and then you have to either give yourself something to do, or read a book, or talk to a friend, go visit a friend, something like this, to keep yourself off of that loop and keep yourself thinking rightly. And I think for me, and for a lot of people, and I talking to a lot of gym bums. There's a lot of gym bums that I know from the gym, and it becomes good friendships over there at the gym. And a number of those guys, they're all there because they have real serious, or serious to them, loops playing. And so they have to go to the gym, and it's part of how they keep themselves in the room, as it were. So they don't go to, there's a guy over there I was working out with a while back, and he was saying, he's like, I know I'm an alcoholic. And when I'm home by myself in the evenings, I think he was like he said from like 6 to 8 or 6 to 8:30, if I sit there when I get home and I just sit there by myself, I'm going to drink. And that's his loop. That's how he copes and deals. And he told the story about he found his lover had committed suicide, and that really messed with him. And he has a problem with drinking already anyway. And so after that happened, so now he's at the gym and he's super buff because he has to be working out, and that's how he keeps himself off the loop. he does something more productive to stay off the loop of like depression and anxiety, right? There's another guy in there that works out all the time. He's like in there like 2 times a day, and he's a bit older, but he's an absolute animal. Nicest guy on the planet, but he similar situation. He used to drink a lot, and he's quit. He's had to replace it and replace that loop of being stuck in that state with exercise. I think that, especially going through a divorce and post-divorce, you have to, this is just my opinion, you have to stay in the gym or get into some kind of group sports, a volleyball team. For me, it's the gym and it's Krav Maga classes, different things that you can get involved in. Even if it's something you don't like to lift weights, you go do yoga. Join a yoga class. It's worth the money. Or go join whatever. You get it. But it's like, if you're prone to being on a loop that's unhealthy, replacing the loop, the fight or flight loop, with something that brings you into the day and brings you into your body, if that makes sense. That sounds really new agey or whatever. It's not, I promise. Like, I don't think that way at all. It's healthy. And so it's almost like stopping the loop before it starts. If you find yourself in the loop, get help. Get help immediately. If you kind of just, and you're stuck there. But I think for a lot of people, it's just mitigating the loop. Just, I know this, I'm prone to doing this, so I have to go do this instead. And it makes your life better. I'm going to go on a walk instead of this thing. I'm going to go run. I'm going to go, get those happy hormones going. Anyway, that's just something I've been learning this last week. That's just a part of it, but that's the thing that sticks out to me the most, is when people are in those states, trying to get them back into their body, as it were, so that they can start chipping away at just the next thing. Take another sip of water for me, please. You get it. Just little tiny baby steps. And sometimes if you're stuck in that state, it's like it takes everything you have just to help people work on their breathing. Okay, do me a favor, take a deep breath in, 3 seconds, 4 seconds in through the nose. Hold it for 4. Coaching people on their breathing, hold it for 4 and breathe out for 4. Breathe in through your nose, 4 seconds. You get it. You get the idea, right? So that you have something to focus on in the now to override all the storming that's coming in that you can't handle. We're not made to handle that, at least not for long periods of time. So if you need the help, get the help. Going through a divorce is one of the hardest things you'll ever do, hands down, especially with children. Get the help. Get the help, get the help, get the help that you need. And then once you're able to kind of get on your own feet, as it were, finding out what works for you to stay off the loop in your head, right? Anyway, those are some of my thoughts for right now. I don't know. Destigmatize mental illness for sure. Normalize mental illness in that sometimes people just find themselves in those states, whether you like it or not. And people are still human, and we all still have the same basic needs, right? So anyway, I don't know. My thoughts for right now. Thanks, guys.